What's going on, guys? I wanted to make a little bit different kind of a video today. There was an article that came out in the Times that when I saw it, it absolutely just made me jump. It's like, it's one of these things, and it's starting to happen more and more. You see this with the fact when you see Barack Obama or Gavin Newsom going on podcasts talking about men are falling behind. It's like, these people are finally catching up to things that I've been saying for the last 18 years. And whenever an article comes out, something like this from the mainstream media, I'm always quick to jump on it. So real quick, just to show you guys what I'm talking about, this is the article right here. Forget the rom-coms. This is from the Times. Forget the rom-coms. Scientists say nice guys do finish last. Now, this is something we talk about in this course in Men of Action all the time. If you're in my program, you kind of understand there's this dichotomy between what women find attractive and what women find comfortable. And we'll go over that in this article. So being agreeable works against men looking for love, a study suggests. Now, first off, when you guys see that, what's your first thought when you see that? Because for me, whenever I see this, my first thought is, yes, this is generally the experience that I've had going through life, is that just in general, I've noticed that being agreeable or the nicer guy doesn't do as well. And I've had this misconception that it meant that I needed to be an in order to get women. And we're going to go over why that isn't true. That's the part that's the piece of nuance that just kind of missed here. So if we go down a little bit further in the article, it talks about when it came to kindness, there was a divide between the sexes. Women who were more agreeable, meaning empathetic, and cooperative and patient, were no more likely to be in a relationship than women whose qualities were less pronounced. So this is a really interesting thing when it comes to agreeableness, but also if you read the book, The Evolution of Desire by David Buss, it goes over self-esteem. Self-esteem is a very interesting thing. For you to be good at your job, men and women with high self-esteem can be very good at their job. But when it comes to attractiveness to the opposite sex, when men had higher self-esteem, it actually made them more attractive to women. When women had higher self-esteem, it actually did not make them more attractive to men. And you're going to see this as kind of like, there's a double standard. If it sounds like a double standard, that's because it is. All right. And then it goes, for men, agreeableness seemed to work against them. The correlation between kindness and being in a relationship was weak, but slightly negative. In other words, the nicer he was, the less likely he was to have a partner. And this is going to come, they're going to talk about this later in the article, where it talks about being more agreeable makes you a better partner, but being more agreeable does not make you more attractive to the opposite sex, okay? The researchers also found that men who were more outgoing, confident, and sociable were significantly more likely to be in a relationship compared with less extroverted men. So remember, this is the kind of stuff we teach: cold approach to build a social circle in Men of Action. We teach confidence, sociability, which includes, in our case, social circle and social media. These are also things that we put in there, so they were more likely to be in a relationship. For women, by contrast, being extroverted made little difference. Again, does this seem like something that you've seen before? Being extroverted made little difference. Outgoing or shy, their chances of having a partner were roughly the same. So what does that mean? That means the super attractive girl who's a little bit shy, she still gets a partner. I've said this a million times before, okay? If you're a man and you suffer from some sort of learning disability, or you're just like hyper uncalibrated, that really significantly decreases your likelihood of being with an attractive woman. It just does. And you know that it does. You've seen guys who are hyper uncalibrated. It's one of the women talk about getting the ick. It's a serious problem for men. If you're a woman and you are straight up ASD, just hardcore autistic, but you're a 10, you're beautiful, you will still get men. This is the difference between men and women. Throughout history, 40% of men and 80% of women have reproduced, which means, in general, women have to take far less risks in order to find a partner than men do. And part of the reason why that is because their beauty can carry them over the goal line in a lot of cases when other things don't really matter as much. And in this study, they're talking about agreeableness. We'll also go over neuroticism and extroversion. And then there's another study, like I mentioned before, in The Evolution of Desire, that goes over the concept of self-esteem. Finally, men who tended to worry or feel anxious or display what psychologists call neuroticism were less likely to have a partner. This is what I talk about, and I'm probably going to do a video just on this one idea. It's called crisis face. Crisis face, for those of you who don't know, crisis face is, they'll come on my call to be like, Michael, I don't understand why these girls don't like me. And you're like listening, you're watching them, and they look like they either need to take a really big doo-doo, or they're like super stressed out. There's like a crisis going on. But like if you ask them, hey, dude, do you feel fine? They're like, yeah, man, I feel great. I feel fine. But their face is like, You guys know people like this. They have this constant hyper anxiety crisis look on their face. Neuroticism doesn't seem to affect women as much when it comes to being in a relationship, but it makes men way less attractive. What is neuroticism? It actually is the way you might have heard of it before. It's not being present. You're not in the present moment. You're so concerned. Neuroticism, basically what it means is, let's just say there's 6 positive emotions and 6 negative emotions. The 6 negative emotions have way more of an effect on you than the positive emotions, meaning you feel the negative emotions more strongly than the positive emotions. And so as a result, you're stuck in your emotions and you're either interpreting the past or you're predicting the future and you're not in the present moment. How do you get out of your neurotic phase? It's by being in the present moment, which is, you show gratitude, you're in the present moment, you come to the realization that you're going to die. That brings you into present moment awareness, and it gets rid of your neuroticism and it gets rid of your crisis face. So if you guys know somebody who has a crisis face, or maybe you grew up in an environment where everyone just had stank face all the time, and I'm not talking about angry, I'm talking about just like, oh God, everyone's judging me. You know what I'm talking about. Some of you have friends like this. Some of you may not realize that you have crisis face, where are people consistently asking you, bro, are you okay? Bro, are you okay? Are people consistently asking you this when nothing's wrong with you? This means you may have a hyper anxiety, neurotic crisis look on your face, which is very, very unattractive to women, something that I've been talking about for a long time. Okay, so here's the actual study. The interplay and personality traits on relationship satisfaction in friendly, family, and romantic domains by Flip Fours Connolly and Mikael Gusen. I believe this was in Sweden where they did this. Yeah, here we go. So the sample size was 3780 adults in Australia, Denmark, and Sweden. So the reason why this is important, so obviously this is not indicative of the entire planet, but the reason why this is more important is because these are egalitarian countries. And what I mean by that is women tend to, in comparison to other Western nations, women make more money than women do, even in comparison as they do in the United States or in like Latin American countries or Middle Eastern countries. There's women often in places like in these Scandinavian countries who make more money than men. So they're more egalitarian than other countries. That's an important thing to understand when you read the study, because if it works like this in egalitarian countries where women make more money and they're still looking for men who are less agreeable, then in the country you live in, if it's not Scandinavian, then it's going to be an extreme example of this. So it measures personality traits, extroversion, neuroticism, agreeableness, relationship, romantic status, and relationship satisfaction. And then the focus was on how gender moderates the associations between personality traits, both A, being in a romantic relationship, and B, satisfaction with that relationship. So this is also another thing that we need to understand in these findings, is that there's a difference between the things you do to get into a relationship, meaning the things that make you attractive to women, and there's a difference between that and the things that allow you to be able to keep a relationship. The thing about being attractive to women is you need to focus more on attraction. So there's attraction triggers that you can have in women that make them attracted to you. And then when you're in a relationship, you need those attraction triggers, but not quite as much. There's more comfort triggers that you need once you're in a relationship. The problem is when most men go to women for advice on relationships, or go to advice like, hey, I like this girl, Sally, can you help me get with Sally? What your female friend does is give you advice on how to build comfort triggers with her instead of attraction triggers. And so that's where we're going over here. So if you were to ask women in general, do you think it's sexy? Do you think it's attractive for a man to be loyal? Almost every woman is going to say, yes, I think it's attractive for a man to be loyal. And then you ask the same woman, do you or any other woman you know, have you guys ever had sex with a man who wasn't loyal? And of course, all of them are going to say yes. And why is that? It's because being loyal is not what makes you attractive. Being loyal is what makes an attractive man more comfortable, more palatable, but you need to be attractive first. So when it comes to this concept of men who were more agreeable were better partners, but they were less attractive, what does that mean? That means I'm doing all these things to be a great partner. I go out and get the master's degree. I go to the right church. I go to the right school, right? I hang out with the right crew. I'm a member of the right country club, and I'm going to meet that good girl. I do all these things to make me a great partner. But it's like if a tree falls in the forest and nobody's there to hear it, does it make a sound? If you're an incredible partner to someone, but no one finds you attractive, does it matter? And that's the point. If you go to women for advice, often, obviously there's definitely certain exceptions to this. I think Kezia Noble knows what she's talking about. There's certain female coaches, but most of them, they skip over, or what Orion Taraban talks about, the part that women leave out is that there's there's things that are requisite to attraction, and women will say things that, again, there's this one survey that comes out, it's the sexiest hobbies that men can have, and the number one was reading. And of course, any of you guys who are out there who've read more than 100 books in your life, you know full and well that women are not attracted to you because you read. They're attracted to you because you can take something you read in a book and you made it sound interesting. They definitely can do that. That's a function of competency, relevancy, and charisma. But they're not attracted to you because you read. But if you ask them, they will tell you they're attracted to you because you read. They'll tell you they're attracted to you because you're agreeable. They'll tell you that they're attracted to you because you're empathetic. They'll tell you that they're attracted to you because you're vulnerable. And then you ask them, okay, have you ever met a man who wasn't vulnerable, who was very stoic, and you ended up sleeping with him? And again, all of them will say yes, because vulnerability is surplus to requirements. It is not a function that generates attraction. What generates attraction? Relevancy, competency, access to scarce resources, locations, networks, humor, charisma, pre-selection, and social proof, just to name a few that do not include looks or money. Those things are things that are evolutionarily proven to generate attraction. But women don't like some of these ideas because they don't like the way it makes them feel. They don't like the idea that, so for instance, all of us know a girl who chases after the bad boy, or chases after the guy who doesn't give her that much attention, or all of us know, a girl who chases after the guy who barely pays any attention to her and ignores her. We've all seen this before. But the idea that women are attracted to that, women don't like to admit that that's how their attraction triggers work. So what they'll do is say, oh yeah, that girl who's attracted to the bad boy, she's unhealed, or she's immature, or she's insecure. And the reality is, if you've been in this space as long as I have, you know that's not the case. Women in general are attracted to men who have something else going on. They don't have to be, and we'll get to that in a little bit, because there's a massive misconception. You don't have to be an in order to get a woman to really like you. What you need to have is boundaries, but we'll get to that here in just one second. So stick with me, okay? So extroversion, more strongly associated with being in romantic relationships for men. Okay, so this is really important to understand. So extroversion, this is a big thing I talk about with my clients. I have some friends of mine, I love Trip Kramer. He's a cool guy. What's his name? RSD Todd. He did this. They would have these courses where basically they were courses for the shy guy. There's another guy, he lives in Austin. I can't remember his name. His name is slipping me right now, but he's the shy guy, or the introverted pickup artist. And the thing is, can you work around being introverted and get women? You can, but it's still a disadvantage. Just like being in the NBA, being tall is an advantage. Can you still play in the NBA if you're shorter? Yes, but you have to have a greater skill set. Like again, think of Shaq and Kobe. Kobe clearly had more of a skill set than Shaq. Shaq was bigger though, he was 7'1". So it's the same kind of situation. Being extroverted is a massive advantage when it comes to attracting women. I grew up introverted. There were certain parts of my life where I really didn't like to talk to a lot of people, and I taught myself to be extroverted. If you guys have ever met someone who's like a professional comedian, you'd be shocked how many comedians you meet that grew up introverted. You can teach yourself to be extroverted. So can you learn game to get around the fact that you're introverted? Maybe, but it's actually better to learn to be extroverted, and here's more data to support that. Neuroticism, so this goes back to what we said before, crisis face. Neuroticism, constantly being triggered by negative emotions and caring about what other people think about you. Neuroticism showed stronger negative associations with romantic relationships, satisfaction for men than women, and then agreeableness, pattern different between the genders. This is so great, listen to this is so great. Agreeableness had different roles in predicting satisfaction relationship across the sexes. And it'll say this before, agreeableness in women did not really affect whether or not they were in a relationship. Agreeableness in men actually made it less likely. Let me say this, let me put the close up here. Agreeableness in men, the way I would say this is full agreeableness is not having boundaries. Okay. Agreeableness in men made it less likely for them to be in a relationship because it made them less attractive. Now, if I were to ask women in general, not all women, there's certainly women who have a very clear understanding of this, but if I were to ask women in general, or ask dating coaches in general, is being agreeable something that would make me more attractive to women? They would say, of course it is, even though the data clearly shows here that it isn't. What is agreeableness and not agreeableness actually a corollary for? It's a corollary for having boundaries. If I have boundaries, then I'm going to be less agreeable when you get to the edge of my boundaries. And I've said this before, women don't need you to be an They just need you to be a man that they cannot manipulate. They need you to be a man who has boundaries. I remember I was 12 years old and I went to White Rock Skating Rink in East Dallas. It was probably 1989. And I remember there was this girl named Estella that I had the biggest crush on. And then one day she shows up with this guy, and this guy looks like the most arrogant dude I've ever seen. He gets in fights all the time. And I was like, she chose him over me. And the dude was kind of an asshole. And then I remember later on when I got out of college, I always brought up that story about that one really pretty blonde that I made out with one time. And then a couple of weeks later, she shows up at my work with another dude who ends up getting her pregnant. And the guy looked so confident. It looked like such an. And I became friends with him later. And this guy got into maybe 25 fights in front of me. He was just very violent, like very crazy. And I remember thinking to myself, do I need to be an asshole to get women? And that was the misconception, because if you're a man who doesn't get girls and you get passed over by guys who look a little bit more cocky and assured of themselves than you get the misconception that you need to be an asshole. You don't need to be an asshole. One of the reasons why I created the Men of Action program is I wanted to figure out a way to be a gentleman with women and still have them feel massive levels of genuine attraction for me. And that's what I was able to do by explaining to you those attraction triggers. When men who are like, that come off as, can that be attractive to women? It can, because those men are showing higher self-esteem and low agreeableness, which shows to be attractive. But it's really hard to have a long-term relationship or to be happy when you're constantly having to keep up this facade or be an asshole to someone. I prefer to not be an asshole. I'll tell you right now, there's nothing in the world that's wrong with loving someone in your life, a family member, someone that you work with, someone that you're in a relationship with, a close friend from high school. There's nothing wrong with loving someone in your life and doing good things for them. I have a nephew. My nephew just turned 11, and I bought him a PS5. And he was so happy when I bought him the PS5 because he gets to play with video games with me online. I love him, so I want to do good things for him. There's nothing wrong with that. A lot of times as men, especially in this manosphere red pill space, we're taught to be hyper stoic and just to, don't give a fuck about what anyone else thinks. And while I understand that, I still want to take people who are close to me in my life and I want to treat them good. I want to take care of them. I want to protect them. I still want to be able to do that. I don't want to be abusive. I don't want to be a narcissist. I don't want to be an asshole. That's why I developed this course, specifically for this reason. How can I still be a good person, a good God-fearing man, and still generate attraction with women? And that's the thing I learned over the last 25 years of studying this subject. Let's get back to the article here. So when it goes to agreeableness, the pattern differed between the genders. Agreeableness had different roles in predicting satisfaction relationships across the sexes. And so this is, again, agreeableness did not help men, but it had no effect when it came to women. So let's go back to the other article here real quick. So when it came to this right here, the author speculates that the results may reflect the persistence of traditional stereotypes and expectations. Confidence and autonomy may be thought of as attractive in men, empathy and emotional warmth more desirable in women. So what it basically has happened is this study that goes over concepts that are more agreeable in men and women show what? Gender differences, innate gender differences. This is one of the things that makes concepts like evolutionary psychology and evolutionary biology so upsetting and non-digestible to certain people, because it expresses the differences in the gender, which a lot of times these are the things that propagate the gender norms. Philip Fors Connolly, an associate professor of sociology and psychology at Umeå University in Sweden, who led the research, said, an assertive, extroverted man may get positive responses when approaching a potential partner, while an assertive woman may face ambivalence or negativity. So assertiveness being, which is pretty much a masculine trait, right? If you guys have ever seen someone get on TRT, they become more assertive. So assertiveness, being a masculine trait, actually had a negative correlation, a neutral negative correlation for women. A man expressing anxiety might be seen as socially weak, while for women it's more acceptable. So those of you who watched that whole CBS article that we did, the response video that Rollo and I made to the CBS story where they interviewed me, the one with Richard Reeves about boys and men falling behind, you'll notice that there was a teacher and one of his former students that were coaching men to be more vulnerable, that were coaching men to be more expressive and more vulnerable. They were having men come and give each other a hug. And, one of the things they left out in that story, and I'm not trying to shame the dude, but they left out the fact that the guy who was telling all these guys to give each other a hug was gay. And the only reason why I'm bringing this up is because I don't think that a gay man has the ability to empathize with my situation when it comes to attracting women. Maybe in the workforce, maybe in other areas of life, but not when it comes to attracting women. What I'm saying is him giving the advice to men to be more vulnerable may work for him in his current dating situation as a gay man, but it's not going to have the same effect for a heterosexual man being more vulnerable and more submissive and more agreeable in a relationship. And again, this isn't speculation. This is the data actually showing this, okay? One more time, a man expressing anxiety might be seen as socially weak. While for women, it's more acceptable. So a man, just in general, you could say a man expressing some level of discomfort or just expressing himself in general may be seen as socially weak. I didn't make these rules up. This is just the way the world sees people. While for women, it is more acceptable. Michael Goosen, also of the University of Umeå University, added, the implication is that even in progressive societies, so you guys remember what I said before about Denmark, Sweden, Norway, and Australia, these are more they're more liberal than the United States. The implication that is even in progressive societies, people whose personalities don't conform to gender stereotypes face barriers in forming relationships, potentially forcing them to choose between authenticity and romantic success. This is one of the things that Dr. Buss talks about in his book, is they go to some of these more liberal societies where women make more money than men, and they have a more of an equal playing field. And what you should find is in those societies, you should have fewer gender norms. You guys already know the punchline. In those societies, you find even stronger gender norms because women are looking for men to lead. Women looking for men to lead is not a function of patriarchy. It's a function of genetics. That's the reason why. And again, me just expressing that, I'm sure I've just been demonetized right now for even making that statement. So that's the thing that's happened. In these liberal societies, it's important to understand this is what's supposed to happen. The social scientists would tell you that if women made more money than men, then those women would no longer want men who make more money than them. The evolutionary psychologists would tell you that in every culture measured, women care more about a man's earning potential or his ability to procure resources than the other way around. So the evolutionary psychologists would predict that even in places like Norway, Sweden, and Denmark, that women who make even more money want men who make even more money than them. And of course, the social scientist is completely wrong and the evolutionary psychologist is completely right. This is another example where we keep thinking that these gender norms are propagated or enforced on us by some sort of patriarchal, misogynistic world order. And a lot of times these gender norms are forced on men by women and sometimes forced on women by men. That's where these things come from. And so what he says in this article, which I really think was important, what he says in this article is the implication is that even in progressive societies, people whose personalities, look for it, don't conform to gender stereotypes face barriers in forming relationships. One more time. Don't conform to gender stereotypes, i.e. being more expressive as a man, face barriers in forming relationships. What I'm telling you is that whole thing where all of these people are on Instagram and TikTok telling you to be more expressive is actually scientifically proven to make you less attractive to the opposite sex. Anybody want to debate me on this? I would love to debate this idea, okay? There was, however, a distinction between entering a relationship and maintaining one. Agreeable men were less likely to have a partner. However, this doesn't mean agreeableness is bad for an actual relationship. So my whole point to this is if a tree falls in the forest and no one's there to hear it, doesn't make a sound. If you're an agreeable man who would make a great partner, but no one finds you attractive, does it matter that you would make a great partner? Several of you right now, you went to the right school, you got your degree in accounting because that's what your mommy and daddy told you to do. You went to the right church, you joined the right clubs. You did everything you were supposed to do because your mommy and daddy told you to do that. And because of that, you turned yourself into a great partner. And women, that's their vaginas drying up whenever they see you because you are boring as That's what's happened because you don't understand attraction triggers. And no one is going to teach you attraction triggers. Whoopi Goldberg is not going to teach you attraction triggers. Joy Behar is not going to teach you attraction triggers. Okay? There's no matchmaker who's going to teach you attraction triggers. And for the most part, most pickup artists I've seen don't understand attraction triggers. The general dating advice out there isn't going to teach you attraction triggers. Shira 7 isn't going to teach you attraction triggers. Chris GQ Perry isn't going to teach you attraction triggers. Only people who have experience in this field and back that experience up with actual data from evolutionary psychology, sociology, evolutionary biology, those are the only people who are actually going to be able to explain to you what these attraction triggers are. And then this data comes out and agrees with everything that I've been saying since I started coaching in 2008, okay? In fact, being kind and patient increased the likelihood that both men and women would be pleased in their relationship when they were in one. Now, this goes back to what I said before. I loved my nephew, so I bought him a PS5. If I have a girlfriend who's really good to me, and you guys have all been here before, you're in a relationship with a woman and just like everything is great, for whatever great means to you. For me, great means support my business, bring peace into my life, unbelievable sex, incredible connection, make me laugh, share conspiracies with me, just really enjoy, like little conspiratorial jokes, inside jokes, send me memes back and forth. And every time I'm with this person, I just feel terrific. And in my case, often there's also like, they like to cook for me and clean my place. Those kind of things, whatever happiness is for you, when you have those things, me as a man, the first thing I want to do is take care of that woman. The first thing I want to do is make her life better. The first thing I want to do is actually solve problems for her. I want to be there for her. And if she becomes the mother of my children, hypothetically, I want to provide for her. I want to buy her a house so that my children can grow up in that house. There's nothing wrong with that. And in that case, are we a bit more sensitive and a bit more agreeable? Yes. But we were already attractive to her first to get in that situation, and then showed agreeableness once she earned it. Once she earned it. Again, this is what I'm telling you guys. If a woman gives you a beautiful child and on the child's birthday, you want to sit there and cry in the emergency room, you cry in the delivery room, that's fine to do. This woman is given an incredible sacrifice. We as men are never going to know what it's like to give birth to a child, right? It's incredibly painful, very stressful, very taxing on the body. She's given up this incredible sacrifice so that the two of you can have a family together. If you look at your baby and you cry, there's nothing wrong with that. That's a cry she earned. The problem is when you guys go on the first date with a girl and you listen to Justin Baldoni telling you to be more sensitive with women you just met. No, you don't need to be more sensitive and open with the job you just started or with the girl you just met or with the friend group. They need to earn the ability to get your vulnerability. Say it with me. They need to earn the ability to see your vulnerability. Okay? That's the thing. And instead of just giving it out for free. So if you have a safe place with people that you trust, maybe you went to high school with or you served in the military with them, and you're like, yo, man, I'm going through a tough time with my wife. I'm just going to be honest with you. It's been rough. We really don't connect with each other. I think we're going to get into a divorce. I'm worried about what's going to happen with the kids. If you're having a hard time with that and you want to share that feeling, that vulnerability, find people you trust in order to do that. Don't post it on TikTok. Don't post it on Instagram about what you're going through. Keep it on the DL and only share it with people who have earned your vulnerability. That's what I'm trying to express to you. But when you find someone who's good to you, then there's nothing wrong with treating them well because they earned it. That's the difference. That's the nuance that this article sort of misses out on. I want to be a gentleman. I want to be good to people who are good to me. People who are loyal to me, I want to be loyal to them. I don't want to be this stoic all the time just because I'm trying to be more attractive to women. So the way that I've done this, the way that I've gotten around it, instead of being a stoic or abusive or whatever, is I always let women know whenever they're dating me, and you'll see this the same thing with my clients, women know when they're dating me that there's always other women who find me attractive. The concept is called mate choice copying in humans, or pre-selection is what we talk about it. The lexicon in general terms is pre-selection. So if you want to talk about pre-selection, what does pre-selection do? Now my girlfriend, instead of picking at me or testing or whatever, she knows that I have options. What happens is if you're a man and you become hyper agreeable, you remember we talked about the agreeableness? This is what happens to us as men. We're in this relationship and then all of a sudden, like, we want this girl to feel happy because things are going well. And so what happens is every time she asks for anything, we say yes. We say yes because we go and we read Men are for Mars, Women are for Venus. We listen to pop psychologists and they tell us happy wife, happy life, happy wife, happy. So we do everything that our partner asks us to do. And I got news for you guys. This could be your employee. This could be your sibling. This could be your child. This could be your partner. If you do everything that they ask, you're in their frame and they can never respect you more. Does that make sense? If you let someone walk over you, it is physiologically impossible for that person to respect you more. So in this case, if you have hyper levels, remember, hyper levels of agreeableness led to men being in fewer relationships. Again, the data is backing this up. If you are in that situation where you're hyper agreeable, you don't have boundaries, which makes you less attractive. But it doesn't mean you need to be an just means you need to have boundaries. It means you need to not be manipulated. And as long as your partner knows that you have options, Rollo calls it dread. But as long as your partner knows that other women find you attractive, why? Because you spend a little time in the gym. You got down to 13% body fat. You know what? You started posting on social media and you got a little bit of attention from some of your friends. At your job, you got a promotion, or you have a little bit, your girl comes to work one day and sees that you're leading a group of other people. And you're actually, when you talk, they all get quiet and listen. You're relevant. You're competent. Those things that make you more attractive to the opposite sex, you still show those things instead of being hyper agreeable. Then that's what keeps women from testing you, causing a bunch of problems, creating the ick. That's what keeps you from having that problem. Okay. So finally, at the end, he cautions those seeking love against reading too much into findings. Our focus is on common patterns across thousands of people. None determines any single personality or relationship with their quality. So they have to throw this in at the end. Why do they have to throw this in? They have to throw this in because this is, in general, a liberal university that came to a finding that basically shows there's innate sex differences between men and women. So they have to say, don't read too much into these findings. I'm telling you that not only should you read too much into these findings are 100%, well, not 100%, but let's just say 85 to 90% indicative of what I've seen out there in the world. In general, the relationships that I see that do the best are when a man leads. I don't want to subjugate. I want my wife to, we're going on vacation somewhere. She knows what preschool that our kids are going to go. I want my wife to have autonomy and agency in our relationship. But when it comes down to the tie, I'm the tiebreaker. And it doesn't have to be like that. If you listen to me right now, you're like, Michael, you're a horrible misogynist. I can't believe you said that. That's terrible. Live your own life. See how that works out. 56% divorce rate. Tell me how that works out for you. Well, I talked to Ryan Taraban about this. And Orion Taraban talks to a lot of people that are in relationships. And when he talks to them, he tells me that when they come to him because they're having problems in relationships, 99% of the time, the woman is leading in the relationship. 99% of the time. And I asked him, I said, hey, do you think probably the reason why 99% of the people you see the woman's leading in the relationship is because the people with the man's leading in the relationship don't need to come to you for help? And he goes, that's exactly what's going on. Yes, that is what's happening. So again, guys, I'm not trying to be misogynistic. I'm not trying to tell you, keep your woman down and she shouldn't speak. That's not what's going on. Go to other red pill content creators for that. That is not what I'm trying to tell you. What I am trying to tell you though is the level of agreeableness that you have when you understand, especially if you're the man and you're providing for the two of them, when it comes down to, hey, we're going to take time off to go on this vacation, and you're like, I can't, honey, because I have to work. That's the end of the discussion. You're providing for both of them. This can't go down the road where it gets worse and worse and worse. So I understand. The thing I want to leave you guys with is that the typical dating advice and the rom-coms that we've seen before, the hypersensitive guy. I'm watching The Boys right now, the show with Carl Urban and Anthony Starr's terrific show. Dennis Quaid's son is one of the characters in the show, and he plays the biggest walking vagina I have ever seen in my entire life. In fact, he gets made fun of on the show for just being this huge, just wussy all the time. And of course, he gets the hottest girl and she falls in love with him. If you guys have ever watched Big Bang Theory, Leonard Hofstadter, Dr. Hofstadter, he ends up with Callie Kuko, his neighbor, who's just like perfect 10 blonde. That's not how the real world works. That's what they try to show us on television to make us think if we're more vulnerable, then we're going to get the hot girl. And that's just not how it works. In general, you have to show attraction triggers, and we can go over those in a different video. But if you can generate those attraction triggers, you can generate attraction, and often you can generate an attraction in women who don't find you attractive. This is a big one. Guys, remember this. I'm going to leave you with a couple of things here. Number one, pickup artists. Pickup is for women who already find you attractive. It works really well if a woman already finds you attractive. Men of action and social circle is for women who don't find you attractive yet. That's the difference. And the reason why there's a difference between one and the other is because pickup, you go direct and you have no ability to generate attraction. You don't have any time in the pocket to find the open receiver like an NFL quarterback. In social circle, because we put girls in a familiar environment around us, that gives us more time in the pocket to find the open receiver and to throw the touchdown, to actually score the touchdown. Because of that, that's the reason why in social circle we can generate attraction with women who don't already find us attractive. if you guys want to learn more about this, guys, make sure you click the link below. There's a lot more stuff that I want to go over. But whenever I see something that is academic, that just clearly speaks to what I've been trying to tell you guys for years, I always want to bring it up. So as soon as I saw this article, I was like, yo, what? We have to do a response to this. If you guys have any questions about it, or if you want to question my findings or whatever, let me go ahead and direct you to my Instagram so you can see that everything I'm saying is true. So thank you guys for joining this, and I'll see you guys in the next video.